Hi, I'm Tracy, also known as MercyTiara, and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be scrapbooking using the Cuddle Up kit from MercyTiara Kits.
When I saw you walking down that hill.
Today is Saturday, which means in a few minutes I'll be live streaming with the community of tiaras over on Patreon. Today I'll be scrapbooking photos of my daughter and our international student on their first day of school.
All that I could do was laugh.
I'm using the Silhouette design software with the icon cut files from the Cuddle Up main kit, and I've deleted all the shapes except this one leaf and an acorn. One of the challenges I've had using cut files on my pages is that I never really know how big to make the designs. So there's this button on the toolbar on the left that says draw a note, and I use this to hold the place of the photo that I think I'm going to use. So if you turn on the grid lines, the thin marks are 1/2 inch spaces and the heavier lines are 1 inch. And so I use those to make my little note. It looks a little bit like a post-it note, and you can move it around on your page, and I just make it the size I think I'm going to use. So in this case, I made my note 6 by 4. And then I roughly arrange my leaves behind the photo placeholder so that I know how they'd look compared to a 4x6 photo. Once I like how they look and have the right amount of them to layer nicely, I delete the photo placeholder and arrange the size shapes on my mat for efficient cutting. So I have all of the leaves up on the top there, and then the acorns are on the bottom. I'm going to cut the leaves from this beautiful orange paper from the cardstock kit, and I'm just placing a chunk of that paper on the top part of the mat for those leaves, and then I've cut a strip of the brown cardstock from the cardstock kit for the acorns on the bottom. And I had to give Lila some head rubs. Last week I set up my cutting machines in a new location, and it's really inspired me to use them. So today I'm using one of the cut files from the main kit.
From our head to toes, we are standing in the overflow. And there's more I know when we're standing in the overflow. We were swimming with the silver.
Next, I just need to remove these shapes from my cutting mat.
Then we raced each other to the room. All that I could do was laugh. All that I could.
I took a moment to admire how they look in the morning sunshine. So the first photo that I am including on this page is a square photo, and so I printed it to 4x4 just because that fits nicely on a 4x6 piece of photo paper. I do print my prints at home using my Epson PictureMate PM400. And then I printed these other photos to be 4 inches tall and 2 inches wide. I cropped them down a little bit when I posted them, when I printed them, and I made them the same height as the square so that I could basically layer them behind the square photo as secondary shots. Because I was able to, I trimmed them down with a slight border around them. I wasn't able to do that with this square photo because it took up the full width of the 4x6 paper because it was 4 wide. So I just need to mat this on a piece of cardstock. I'm just using white cardstock from my scraps. Keep this little baggie of scraps. It's actually a page protector of scraps just in my scrap caddy, which sits beside me as I scrapbook. Now, these look really nice all together, and I think that they make up pretty close to a 4x6 size photo. It might be a little bit more or a little bit less depending on how they overlap with one another. The MTK kits come wrapped in this beautiful craft tissue paper, and I love being able to make use of it. I don't always get to make use of it, and because my kits are made in-house. I don't actually get this tissue paper, so I had to go downstairs and grab a piece of it. But I really love how this craft tissue paper looks with these cut files. And the cut files, so I just wanted to point out here that I did keep the inside pieces from those maple leaves. I just thought they looked really cute, and I liked that the cardstock is double-sided, so the back side of this cut is actually blue. And I thought it looked really great, so I thought maybe I could use those and stick them in as well somewhere on this page or maybe on a different page. I'm not entirely sure here. So there are a couple of different ways that you can back paper with, back cut files with paper. What I'm doing here is I'm actually not gluing these down. I'm using the stickiness that's still on the paper from the cutting mat, and that will come back to bite me. So that's maybe not the best way to do it. But if you use glue with tissue paper, just make sure that you're very cautious with it, like that you don't use a whole lot of glue, because that tissue paper is very, very delicate and it will easily become saturated with glue, and your glue will be oozing out and you'll be able to see it more because the paper is see-through, right? Because it's tissue paper. So I was taking a shortcut and tore instead of cutting the edge of that and regretted it. So I'm going to change my method. So I said there were two methods. One way is to just stick it on and then cut around. The other way is to trace it with a pencil and then cut around it. I'm cutting so that I'm cutting off the pencil marks so that the pencil marks won't be there. In theory, you wouldn't see them anyways, but you might see the edges of them. And it also makes sure that that piece of tissue paper is just very slightly less in size smaller in size than the leaf itself. So that turns out to be the faster route for me. So that's the way I'm going to do all of these. And then that other one that was ripped, I just had to redo. So I stuck it down to another piece of the tissue paper, and now I'm just cutting around it like this. As you can see, that's a pretty easy way to cut the tissue paper. You can see that I have my fussy cutting scissors out on the desk, but I'm not using them. I tried to use them. They're very, very old and they're in need of replacement, and they're just not cutting it anymore. They're not cutting it anymore, so I'm going to have to replace those. They're just not sharp enough to work on something, especially something delicate like tissue paper. They do still work on paper, but not on the tissue paper. So I have these leaves, and I was thinking that it might be nice to add some stitching to the outside edges of these leaves, and I'm going to be stitching it with gold thread. Now, gold thread is something that you can get pretty easily, and you just use it in exactly the same way that you would use regular thread. However, it is not the same as regular thread, so you will probably need to change the thread tension on your machine. Now, I am using a very, very basic machine. I have this half-size sewing machine. It is wonderful for scrapbooking, but the problem with it is that it only has one speed. It's either going or it's not going. And so you can't sew slowly with this machine when you're using the pedal. You can turn the crank on the right-hand side there. You can see that pink circle. You can turn that to make it go slow. So I'm doing a few things. First of all, I'm using a piece of scrap paper just to determine, whoops, sorry about the angle there. I'm just using a piece of scrap paper just to check my thread tension. And yeah, the thread tension is wrong. So it was set to 2, and I'm going to try it a little bit lower. I guess maybe it was set to 3. I tried it on 2. And it's still not right. So I'm just going to kind of experiment with it. I ended up finding that the tension was best set to 0 on this particular machine. And so I'm not going to show you me cutting every single one of these leaves, but I just wanted to show that as I turn the corners, I leave the needle in the material, lift up my foot and turn the project around. And then I sew along that line, lift up the foot while the needle is in, turn it, and sew along the next line. And I just repeat this process for the entire leaf. And I did that for the 3 main big leaves. So I didn't bother trying to stitch on those tinier leaves because it just seemed like it would be very, very difficult. If you had a full-size machine, my big sewing machine downstairs that I really only use for sewing fabric, also known as I never use it because I never sew fabric. But that machine that's reserved for some magical day when I decide to sew fabric has a slow button on it, and that would be ideal if you had one of those. But there's how the images look when they're stitched. I think they look gorgeous. And so now we're at the part where our main embellishments are created, they're cut, they're backed, they're stitched. I'm ready to go. So I am going to have a look at this kit and determine what will be my background paper. That's my first step for most of my projects. So I really like this grid one. I love that blue color. It's so warm and I just love it. I love the addition of this bluey green, and the tiaras and I were having a conversation about whether that was blue or teal or what kind of color that was. There's also some mint green in this kit as well that is just gorgeous. I love that plaid that I'm using in behind. Right now it's behind the blue piece of paper. Ooh, I think that looks really bold and fun as well. And I thought that, using that plaid would be really beautiful. I love, love, love that plaid. And I would love to be able to use it in a large amount, but I am going to use some restraint here and use it as my outside border instead of as my main background paper. I really do think it would look awesome as a main background paper too. And if you use it that way, I would love to see your pages because this was very tempting. I only have the main kit. I do not have the extra pattern paper add-on this month. We're saving that for customers because it has been selling out. So yes, please use it for a background and please show me because I totally want to see it as a background. So here I am responsibly using my paper and my ATG ran out of adhesive, but I will fix that. I'll actually not include that in the process video because it's a little bit tedious, but yeah. So there is my background already. So now we're ready to actually embellish because we've got our background all done with the mat around it. We have all of our main embellishments and our photos are all ready to go. What I'm doing here is looking for a brown pen to do my outlining with. And you know what? I have this ballpoint brown pen, but it's actually not working very well and it doesn't leave a very thick line. It's a very fine ballpoint pen. So I'm using this, it's an old American crafts marker. I forget what it's called, but I don't love those markers. But I use them anyways because it's brown. I really need to get some brown markers, like some felt tip markers. I am going to now place these, and this is where I am so happy that I took the time on Silhouette, on the design software, to be able to size these up so that they're fitting nicely behind these photos. They're not getting lost. And I really, really like how they're looking. Now I'm tucking in some of those extra little offcuts, the insides of the maple leaves, flipping them around to the blue side, and ooh, I really love how that looks. What do you guys think? Does that add? It just adds another layer of just interest. I love the intricacy of those cuts. Oh, I was tempted to use that plaid. I love that plaid. I did rescue the back of it, so I gutted it before I put the grid paper on top of it. So I do have some to use, but I decided again, I think that the responsible decision here is to use this brown paper with the little polka dots all over it. It will calm your eye and give some definition to these photos, which are the main element of this page. I love these photos, and obviously I want people to look at the photos on the page. That's the main deal here. My journaling is just going to be basically a bit of a caption, which you'll see when I go to do it. So I trimmed that down so that it basically holds all the photos together. So now those 3 photos become one element that I can move around on the page as I decide how I want to layer all of these leaves. These leaves are going to be the main embellishment, and there's really not going to be a whole lot of other embellishing on this page as far as die cuts and that sort of thing goes, but I'm going to have a lot of fun with a lot of things on this page. So keep watching because it's going to be pretty grand. Look at that little acorn popping out behind the leaves. Fall is my very favorite season, and to be honest, I rarely scrapbook much of the fall. So I just love getting a chance to use this fall themed kit. So I'll place that acorn on the edge of the photo there, and then I'll tuck this one right under where it was before. Oh, those are so cute. I thought about using a very light brown marker to color the inside of the caps of the acorns, and I think that that would look really great. In fact, I might go back and do that. I didn't at this point. I think that this looks pretty fabulous. I love the combination of the orange and blue, and oh, that plaid around the outside edge just makes the whole thing, it adds an energy to it. And there might be a rule out there about not combining grids and plaids and that sort of thing. And I say, do what you want to do. So I wanted to combine these two. I think that the contrast between the diagonal lines of the plaid and the horizontal and vertical stripes of the grid, I think that they create this dynamic energy around the whole outside frame of the page that just energizes the whole thing. And I think otherwise it would look maybe a little drab with all of the heaviness and the darker colors on this page. So it also, by adding a lighter colored outer border, what it does is it brightens up the whole page, but it also ties into the brighter colors that are in the actual photo. The photo has a very bright sunrise and a really bright sky, and Sophie's t-shirt is really bright. So there's a lot of almost white element. I mean, they're white in the photo. And this layout has so many browns that it's important to offset all of those browns. That trim, while I was blabbering on about all that stuff, I did put on that crocheted trim that comes in the main kit. I adore that trim. There's 18 inches of it, so you can easily use it in 2 different places or use a whole bunch of it on one page if you wanted. And I just decided to put a strip across the bottom to give myself a little bit of grounding. I'm having a look at all of the die cuts that come in the main kit and the embellishment kit here. I've got all of the kits combined. And I'm just picking out the ones that don't have white outlines on them. Because this page has so far not had any white other than the white in the photo, I didn't want to introduce white on the outside edges of these die cut pieces. The other thing you could do here is you could fussy cut some of the florals in the pattern papers. There's some beautiful florals in there. Those would have looked beautiful too. Again, I would be staying away from anything with a white border, but you could fussy cut it so it doesn't have a border, or pick one of the papers that just doesn't have a white background. I grabbed some little tiny flowers and some leaves. And again, I was limited to the things that didn't have a white border. And so there were only a few of them. So I just took what there was and made them work. And I think they look really great. I tried to balance them around on the page. So there are 2 really dark brown die cuts. They look a little bit like pine cones. And I just made sure that they were on 2 opposite sides of the page. You can see one over on the far right and one over on the far left. And then I have that tag that's tucked behind the cluster on the left-hand side at the top. And I balanced that because it's a little bit lighter than everything else on the page. I balanced that with the book die cut in the bottom right-hand side of the page. That's going to hold my journaling. Now that I've glued everything so far, I've glued everything to each other, but it hasn't been glued to the main page yet. So just added some adhesive there, and I will put that down. Now that I've decided where it's all going to live, I thought it was time to commit to that. And that just helps everything come together. I will replace that tag right where it was, and I'm just going to make these little die cuts be stuck down now. And I'm thinking about calling this one BTS, and Elise, who was in my live stream at the time, she said that she had just called a page BTS. BTS for back to school, of course. It also sometimes means behind the scenes. I use BTS both ways. Occasionally, it also means the K-pop band, but usually for me, it means behind the scenes or back to school. So, and I think the photo makes it pretty clear which BTS I'm talking about of the 3 options. If you know of another BTS acronym that BTS stands for, leave it in the comment section because I would love to hear what else it might mean in your part of the world or in your profession. I know that we all have different acronyms for things, and I always find it fun. Wordplay is one of my favorite things. So here's an option. I could put BTS down there. I felt like it's sort of getting lost. So I tried it up here and it fills that little gap, but I kind of like there being a gap there. It's a nice little space between my two main clusters here. So I scooched it over so that it's mostly on the tag here, and I do like how that looks. Those letter stickers come in the main kit, and they're really cool because they have these, it's like a bluish slate gray is the main color. And of course, there's so much blue as accents in this kit. It works really well with that. But also there are these little bits of what is it? I think it's like a bronze color lines on it, and it really warms them up and makes them look so interesting. I just love those letters. They're one of my favorite things in the kit. So my journaling here says Sophie starts her senior year and Ellie starts grade 11. And then I put September 2024, even though 2024 is already down there on the little letters from Cider House that came in the embellishment kit. But I didn't really love how that looked. It was too light. That pen I was using is just like too thin. So I went over it with that other marker from American Crafts. I think it's called a Precision Writer. I don't think they make those anymore though. And I think there's a reason they don't make them anymore. They were not great markers. So I'm going to pop this up so it has some dimension and stands out from the layer of leaves that it's beside and on top of. And I'm actually going to double up the adhesive, the foam adhesive that's on the bottom layer. So these three across the bottom will all have double foam adhesive to account for the fact that there's less layers along the bottom of that book than there is on the top of the book. So that will make it lie flat on the page. So there we go. I like that in the bottom corner like that. It looks really cute. And now this is my top cluster. This is what I would consider a secondary cluster. It's my third. Of course, these clusters typically work best in threes from a visual design perspective, but you do you. You don't always have to have three of everything or three clusters. But I do like how it looks. It balances it off a little bit to have a little something up in the top corner. Could be the left corner or the right corner, but I decided to go with this right corner. I took the confetti mix that comes in the Cuddle Up kit and I just sprinkled it liberally around the page, focusing on those two clusters, those two large clusters of leaves. And I thought that the confetti would look really nice spread liberally like this. Sometimes I tend to actually be very conservative with the use of my confetti pieces. I will often put little tiny clusters of three in 3 or 4 different places and call it a day. But with this one, I really wanted to sprinkle quite a bit all over my page because it feels a little bit like a fall day. You know, when it's almost like there's spores in the air or, you know, just there's lots of little bits everywhere in the fall, whether it's on the ground or in the air or wherever you're at outside. So I thought that these little confetti pieces would work really well for that. Just to give me that overall vibe of, you know, fall is in the air. I am using my Art Glitter Designer adhesive. It's the dries clear kind. And I'm using my pickup stick from We Are Memory Keepers. We have both of these products in our shop if you're interested in these. If you pick up a kit and you need some of either of these, we have them for you. And I'm just placing them everywhere. I even allowed them to land on the photo, and I think that that adds to the dreamy effect of especially the square photo has the sunshine in the background, and it really does have a real dreamy feel to it. So I thought that leaving the little bits on there would be good. I'll mention also that this particular confetti mix includes a new to us, new to the MTK team anyways, a new kind of confetti piece, which is a mirrored confetti, and it's called iced caramel. And oh my goodness, it is so pretty. It's this beautiful, warm, mirrored circle in 3 different sizes, and wow, it was just gorgeous. So I give my layout a little shake just to see what's still left to glue down, and it turns out I forgot to glue down the ones on the photo, so I will just quickly glue those down right now. And then we'll just take a quick look at what else. I didn't use these puffy stickers, which came in the main kit, and oh, I love them so much, but I just didn't want to add anything to this. I just felt like it's pretty good just the way that it is. I'm gonna tidy up some of these extra little bits that are on my desk, and I think that is it. But do you notice one thing that I forgot to do? And that is I forgot to put the string on my tag. Oh, hang on a second. We have these little brads. These are adhesive brads from Simple Stories. Oh, I love them. And look, we've got these 3 different ones in 3 different colors. And at first I thought, oh, I don't want to introduce a new thing. But then I thought, oh, but they really do add a lot. They're just so beautiful. So I'm going to add another little sparkly sequin piece up there. And this is how this one looks. There will be photos coming up, and I'm also going to chat with you a little bit about how this one turned out and show it to you up close. But before I do, I have this string. I don't know where this string is from. It could be lawn trimmings from way back a long time ago. But it could also be any other thing too. So I don't know what brand it is. I'm all done, and look at what I created today. Today I made this beautiful page. I'm so pleased with how it turned out. I love that I was able to use the cut file, and also that I backed it with the tissue paper that comes in each kit. Each kit comes wrapped in this brown craft tissue paper, and I love using it in my layouts. I also am really happy with how the stitching turned out on some of the leaves, the larger leaves, with the gold thread. It's so pretty, and it picks up on the confetti mix on this page as well. After I finished this one, I also did another one because I was on a roll. So I created this one with the photo that I took of the mushrooms in my front yard. As I was waiting for this live stream to start, my daughter showed me these gorgeous yellow mushrooms. They're so brightly colored, you can see them from our house. And we went out and took some pictures. So this was really fun too. If the process video for this one isn't part of this video, it'll be the next one on my channel. So thanks so much for watching, and have yourself a really great scrappy week. Bye-bye. Now, before I share the photos, just a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters. These folks help make this channel happen, so big thanks to all of them. Patrons get early ad-free access to all my process videos, and also unedited real-time versions of my videos, often in the form of live streams, as well as at least monthly live streams, usually weekly, and behind-the-scenes videos of my room and my process. And thanks to you also for watching all the way to the end. Once again, I'm MercyTiara, and I like to share my full process, including all of the decision making and what works and what doesn't work for me. Be sure to check out the links at the end of this video for my complete works of thousands of scrapbooking process videos. If you're new to scrapbooking, be sure to check out my Intro to Scrapbooking series called Take the Plunge, which will be linked here as well. I hope you enjoyed this page. Stay tuned to my channel for more process videos and more. And until next time, take care and have a really great scrappy week.